Hey, yo, what up? Welcome back. This is not a podcast. This is just my thoughts with Rob Markman. Hope y'all all had a beautiful weekend. I hope you have an amazing Monday and a fruitful and productive and just a beautiful week. All right. So we're going to get right into it. Rolling Stone dropped an interesting story this morning with a headline that is sure to generate more headlines, just like the headline in this YouTube video. Right. But the Rolling Stone headline says lawsuit against Spotify claims billions of Drake streams were fraudulent. All right. There's a quotation mark in billions. There's a quotation mark around fraudulent. Shout out to Nancy Dillon and John Bliston who wrote the article. I'm going to be honest. I've heard that this was coming and you know, or this was a thing. Part of this may be connected to the story that broke over the summer about the issue Spotify was having with alleged fraud in Turkey. Remains to be seen, right? Now, what I didn't know, what was surprising to me was, you know, this lawsuit launched against Spotify yesterday. Now it's a class action lawsuit against Spotify and it cites Drake. So it's a lawsuit against Spotify and cites Drake as an example. It's not a lawsuit against Drake, but the lawsuit was filed by RBX. RBX, the rapper RBX, who was down with Death Row. He was on the Chronic back in the day, Doggy Style. He was on the Marshall Mathers LP, Remember Me with Eminem and Sticky Fingers. He's also Snoop's cousin. So Drake was named in 2 other lawsuits over the past week unrelated to streams for his role in the gambling site Stake. There was one in New Mexico, one in Missouri. I stayed away from those. I didn't report on those because they weren't music related and I didn't just want to dive in. I told myself I was going to sit back and just wait and see how serious those became and if there was actually, you know, steps further that would be taken. This one here is music related and it felt relevant. So I'm going to read the article. We're going to go through it. We're going to discuss. But before that, I need y'all to subscribe. And then I need y'all to like. Then I need y'all to share. And I need y'all to comment. I need y'all to support the channel. Y'all have done such a beautiful job supporting the channel up until this point. And I appreciate that support and just looking for more support. So if you can subscribe, like, comment, share, do all of that. And then we're going to get right into it. All right. So as I said, the headline, lawsuit against Spotify claims billions of Drake streams were fraudulent. The subheadline, a new class action lawsuit accuses the streaming platform of turning a blind eye to mass-scale fraudulent streaming by Joe Bliston and Nancy Dillon. And that this is November 3rd, 2025. It's today. It says a new class action lawsuit against Spotify alleges the company has turned a blind eye to mass scale fraudulent streaming on its platform and that one musician in particular has been the beneficiary of billions of fake streams, Drake. The suit was filed in California District Court on Sunday night with rapper and cousin of Snoop Dogg, RBX, as the lead plaintiff. While the most eye-popping allegations in the suit relate to Drake's streaming numbers, there are no specific accusations of wrongdoing against the Nokia rapper. Only Spotify is named as a defendant. I think that's important to note. Here's a quote. It says, every month under Spotify's Watchful Eye, billions of fraudulent streams are generated from fake, illegitimate, and or illegal methods like bots, the lawsuit states. Such mass-scale streaming fraud, it continues, causes massive financial harm to legitimate artists, songwriters, producers, and other right shareholders. So what they're saying is you know, Spotify turns this what they call a blind eye to fake and fraudulent streams. That what it is, because the way Spotify works, right, is that all of your subscription money goes into it and then artists get paid off for streams. So if you get more streams, you get more money from Spotify. And what they're saying is, you know, for artists, if these bigger artists are getting paid out for fake streams, it hurts other artists because it dilutes their shares. You know what? I don't even have to explain it. I'm sure the article explains it, right? So next paragraph. Streaming royalties are paid out through a stream share model where subscription and ad dollars are put into a giant pool with the money divvied up based on each artist's share of the total streams. Most of that money already flows upstream to the most successful artists and biggest right holders. In this type of share pool model, fake streams hurt other artists whose shares aren't inflated. Parentheses, Spotify and representatives for Drake did not immediately respond to a request for comment. says, while the lawsuit suggests that use of bots is widespread on Spotify, the only example it cites pertains to Drake. So lawsuit says widespread, but the only example that they cite in the lawsuit pertains to Drake. It claims voluminous information which Spotify knows or should know proves that a substantial, non-trivial percentage of Drake's approximately 37 billion streams were inauthentic and appeared to be the work of a sprawling network of bot accounts. This alleged fraudulent activity took place between January 2022 and September 2025, according to the complaint. It claims an examination of Drake's streams revealed abnormal VPN usage had obscured the location of the bot accounts streaming Drake songs. For instance, the lawsuit claims that over a 4-day period in 2024, at least 250,000 streams of his song No Face originated in Turkey, but were forcibly geomapped through the coordinated use of VPNs to the United Kingdom in an attempt to obscure their origins. So remember I said the Turkey thing may come into play. I just want to look up the his discography against the timeline that they are alleging, right? So they are saying from January 2022 to September 2025. So January 2022 was Honestly Nevermind. So Certified Lover Boy was September 2021. Honestly Nevermind was 2022. June 2022. Her Loss was November 2022. So there we go. So they're saying, from January 2022 to September 2025. And Turkey. Remember I said that Turkey thing may be relevant. Okay, the article says the lawsuit also alleges that a large percentage of accounts streaming Drake's music were geographically concentrated around areas whose population could not support such a high volume of streams. Population who could not support such a high volume of streams. No exact places or numbers were given, though the suit claimed that some streams reportedly originated in areas with 0 residential addresses. The lawsuit, so bot farms, it's like, oh, people don't even live here. These are, there's no residential addresses here. The lawsuit also cites significant and irregular uptick months for Drake's songs long after they've been released, as well as slower and less dramatic decay rates for Drake's music compared to his contemporaries. Parentheses. Decay rate refers to a typical streaming pattern where plays of an album or a song naturally dwindle in the weeks and months after release. So y'all probably know this from y'all behavior. A new song, a new album comes out, you stream it a lot. The first day, oh man, this new song is great. It lessens. You work more songs into your rotation, so there's a natural decay rate that happens with most artists. The lawsuit further claims that the number of streams of Drake's music attributable to individual accounts is staggering and irregular, with the massive amount of accounts listening to Drake's music doing so 23 hours a day. Less than 2% of these users, the lawsuit goes on to claim, account for roughly 15% of Drake's streams, and about 9% of Drake's streams are attributed to 1% of these users. So these users who listen to Drake 23 hours a day. As a result, the complaint claims Drake's music accumulated far higher total streams compared to other highly streamed artists, even though those artists have far more users than Drake. The lawsuit does not state how the plaintiffs or their lawyers obtained this data, nor does it shed any light on how the analysis of Drake's streaming numbers were conducted. These allegedly fraudulent streams generated significant revenue for Drake and his company Frozen Moments at the expense of other artists, the lawsuit claims. But it also states that Spotify deliberately turns a blind eye to fraudulent streaming for its own benefits. Again, remember, this is against Spotify. While Spotify has taken steps in recent years to combat and tamp down streaming fraud, the lawsuit casts doubt on the efficacy of these measures and Spotify's own incentives to stop fraud. It suggests that Spotify is particularly vulnerable to bots on the platform's ad-supported free tier because the myriad of accounts The myriad of accounts can be generated without having a credit card number by it. Okay. So free tier, there's paid tier, and those streams count differently, but they're saying this runs rampant on the ad-supported free tier Spotify because you don't need a credit card to sign up. By allegedly allowing bots to run rampant, Spotify can present high stream and user activity numbers to potential advertisers, the lawsuit alleges. So they're saying, Spotify may actually also be losing money if they allow bots, right? But what the lawsuit is at least claiming is that, hey, well, if you let a number of free users in and fraudulent free users, then you could charge advertisers more because you could say, hey, we have more listeners, even if those listeners aren't real people. That is what the lawsuit is alleging. Here's a quote. For Spotify, more users and music streams means more advertising dollars, so long as the true origin of the streams remains hidden, the lawsuit states. Parentheses. Here it goes. See, there's Rolling Stone. Spotify also loses money in the form of royalty payouts whenever fraudulent streaming occurs. And that's Rolling Stone's note reminding you, like, yes, if the lawsuit is claiming that, hey, their ad revenue gets boosted because of this, Rolling Stone is saying, hey, they may also lose money on the royalty payout end. Here's another quote from the lawsuit. Artists across the streaming industry need accurate reporting of streams and effective fraud detection to ensure fair compensation. When streams are artificially inflated on a large scale, as my client lawsuit alleges has happened with respect to streams of Drake's music, it affects the income of countless songwriters, performers, and producers. Mark Pifko, one of the lawyers with Barron and Budd, who filed the lawsuit on behalf of RBX, tells Rolling Stone. The lawsuit seeks to address these broader issues, recoup losses for affected musicians, and make the streaming ecosystem as fair and transparent as possible for everyone involved. Rolling Stone goes on. The new lawsuit and the claims regarding Drake's music notably come just weeks after a judge tossed Drake's lawsuit against Universal Music Group, which contained its own allegations of streaming fraud. Though technically a defamation case, this is important now because a lot of people are going to say, well, he sued UMG and now somebody is suing him back. Again, this is against Spotify, it's not against Drake. But listen to what Rolling Stone says here. Though technically a defamation case, Drake accused his own record label UMG of artificially inflating the popularity of Kendrick's diss track Not Like Us, marking arguably the most high-profile allegation of streaming fraud to date. UMG denied all of Drake's allegations, and the streaming fraud claims, specifically writing in a March legal filing, there is no evidence of any such streaming manipulation. Streaming fraud has been the topic of discussion in the industry for years, while pinpointing just how rampant it is and calculating corresponding losses is difficult. Most estimates hover around the range of hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. A 2019 Rolling Stone report noted that fake streams could be costing artists $300 million a year. A 2023 study in France found that between 1% and 3% of all streams in the country were fake. If those numbers held true globally, that would mean royalty losses up to $510 million. Last year, BeatDap, a streaming fraud detection program, estimated that at least 10% of all streams are fraudulent, leading to annual losses to $2 to $3 billion. Efforts to crack down on streaming fraud have ramped up around the world. A Danish man was convicted last year, while another individual was arrested in Brazil back in March. Over the summer, officials in Turkey, where the lawsuit says some of the alleged fraudulent Drake streams originated, started investigating Spotify over several allegations, including bribes for playlist placement and bot streams distorting domestic charts. A rep for Spotify told Music Business Worldwide at the time that they are cooperating with investigations, are actively seeking to understand it, and will work towards a swift, constructive resolution with the Turkish Competition Authority. So the thing that happened in Turkey, which they reference here, Spotify is says they're cooperating and they're trying to figure out what went wrong in Turkey. And in the U.S., federal prosecutors brought an unprecedented streaming fraud indictment last September against a North Carolina musician named Michael Smith. Smith is accused of using artificial intelligence to generate hundreds of thousands of songs, which he then allegedly streamed with bots. The feds claim at one point Smith had as many as 10,000 active bot accounts streaming his music and allegedly made over $10 million from this scheme. Smith has denied the charges. So we talk a lot on this channel about the dangers of AI. There it goes. Drake filed his first legal claims over Not Like Us just 2 months after Smith was arrested and indicted, and the official defamation suit was brought in January of this year. The streaming fraud allegations against UMG were based on statements from a purported anonymous whistleblower who appeared on the show by DJ Academics, the popular streamer and longtime Drake associate. We've talked about that too, right, when we talked about the case. As stated in Drake's lawsuit, the whistleblower claimed that Lamar's label Interscope, a UMG subsidiary, paid him $2,500 via third parties to use bots to achieve 30 million streams on Spotify in the initial days following the release of Not Like Us. Per the suit, the whistleblower said the goal was jumpstarting the song's spread and making it a crazy hit on the platform. We talked about that when we talked about the lawsuit. Now, UMG, in a motion to dismiss, noted that the whistleblower directly refuted his own claim when he said that he was hired by Lamar's manager, Anthony Saleh. In a revised complaint filed in April, Drake pared down his allegations, claiming UMG was aware that third parties were using bots to stream the recording and turn a blind eye, despite having the power to stop such behavior. Remember, and we talked about this before too. Drake initially filed a lawsuit against UMG, and then UMG filed a motion to dismiss, and then Drake filed an amended complaint. And one of the major changes was around the accusation of this streaming of this guy who appeared on Academics and said that he was paid to buy streams and Not Like Us. So that just explains, that's what it was. Remember, there was headlines going around at the time like, oh, there's an amended complaint, and Drake drops the claim of fake streams for Not Like Us. That wasn't the case. It wasn't dropped. The language was changed and softened against UMG. But, also a moot point because the case was dismissed, even though it is now being appealed. The original suit also alleged that UMG conferred financial benefits to Apple so that Siri would purposely misdirect users to Not Like Us when they asked it to play Drake's album Certified Lover Boy. The claim was sourced partly to a viral video posted by Hip Hop DX's Jeremy Hetch, shout out to Jeremy, who later clarified that Siri appeared capable of pulling songs based on just lyrics it recognized. Thus, asking Siri to play Certified Lover Boy without specifying by Drake can conceivably trigger Not Like Us because of Lamar's line, Certified Lover Boy, Certified Pedophile. Even before Drake filed his defamation lawsuit, many legal experts and industry figures were skeptical of his allegations and the viability in court. Speaking with Rolling Stone last year about the petition, Brian Zsuk, shout out to Z, co-founder of the streaming service AudioMac, even suggested Drake might regret asking Universal to provide documentation for artificial streaming. This is a quote from Z. He says, "It's likely a lot of artists, Drake included, have benefited from streaming bots without their knowledge," he said. Zizek also noted that many top artists have labels and distribution partners who have opted into above-board programs like Discovery Mode and have artificially manipulated streams, and the artists have no idea. And they don't ask questions because it looks good. It's funny, I was doing distribution for years, and we would opt into Discovery Mode for Spotify. And again, it's above board. It's a totally legit thing to do. But I would ask, before we opted in to Discovery Mode for artists, I would get their permission first. And most artists say yes. But Discovery Mode is legit. Discovery Mode and buying bots are not the same thing. Ultimately, Drake's suit faltered. A judge summarily dismissed the suit's defamation accusations, ruling that Not Like Us as a diss track qualified as a non-actionable opinion. And while the judge's decision largely centered on the validity of Drake's defamation claims or lack thereof, she also briefly addressed his streaming fraud allegations. She said Drake's evidence essentially amounts to tweets by individual users and reporting from fans, and called his reliance on online comments and reporting insufficient to meet the plausibility standard. If you remember in the lawsuit, Drake's team cited a lot of different Twitter users who we don't know who they were. So it says the proposed class action filed Sunday. This is the new lawsuit. This is the current one. The proposed class action filed Sunday claims damages in excess of $5 million. It's asking that a federal judge certify the lawsuit as a class action order Spotify to identify alleged victims and oversee a jury trial seeking compensatory and punitive damages. And then it says RBX born Eric Dwayne Collins helped author Dr. Dre's West Coast anthem, Let Me Ride. So he's a songwriter, and was featured on several tracks for Dre's seminal album, The Chronic. And there you have it. It'll be interesting to see how this one develops. If we're speaking facts again, and I want to be factual and I want to be fair, this is a class action suit against Spotify, not Drake. But it cites Drake, and it cites Drake as the and only cites Drake. It feels like we have to wait to see how far it actually goes. But it feels like these are like domino effects of the original lawsuit and allegation. You start opening the door, trying to look through people's closets, and people could do the same to you. So I don't know where this ends. It also I don't know what else comes behind it. Again, the turkey thing happened over the summer. Now we get this. There seems to be some correlation between that. Is there something else? Is there something bigger down the line? I don't know, but it's all interesting. So we'll wait and see. Right now, these are just allegations, and we have to wait and see how it plays out. And look, how it affects Drake, but I also think that just the bigger thing is how this affects Spotify and the music industry as a whole. Because whether Drake has used bots or not, whether you believe Drake has used bots or not, whether you believe Kendrick has ever used bots or not, I don't think you'll find anybody who will. It's a problem. It's a clear issue. It's a clear problem. And so I guess the question is Spotify doing enough to combat it, and is it fair for other artists? We'll see how far it goes, but I'll leave that here for now, and we'll talk again soon. I want to talk about this Big L album. If you follow me on Instagram, or any of my socials, on Threads, on Instagram, on Twitter, at Rob Markman, I did do a video about Big L and Mac Miller's joint. I did a video about Ransom's joint, so with DJ Premier. So we've been talking music for sure. But this just broke out, and I felt like, man, let's talk about it. But, we're going to get back, and we're going to talk about music, too. So hit me in the comments, all right? Let me know what you think, and we'll speak again soon. Peace.